Do you play a fireball character or want to play a zoning fireball character in the future? If so, this video's got you covered. So just to let you know, this video is broken up into two sections. I'm not going to judge you if you skip ahead, I promise. The first section just goes over, the different types of zoning archetypes so you can see which characters you use with their pros and cons. But if you want to go directly into the tips portion, that's going to be at the end of the video, but you can find both in the timestamps. So do what works best for you. I'll be honest with you, I've loved fireball characters since as long as I can remember. I remember going to the arcade for the first time and seeing Ryu, Ken, Guile throw fireballs, and honestly, it was love at first sight. So the main reason I'm making this video is not to tell you how much, I'm obsessed and I love zoning characters. I actually want to make a video to help new players or people that are using fireball and zoning characters to actually improve their zoning game. A lot of these tips, they took me years and years to learn, and my goal is to make sure it doesn't take you years to learn and you learn it much faster than I did. And believe it or not, long before everyone used to hate grapplers, zoning characters used to wear that crown. So let's get zoning characters back to where they need to be, the most hated character in the game. So the first section, let's talk about the three archetypes that I think exist in Street Fighter 6 for zoning. The first is the all-arounder. The second is the traditional / pure zoners. And then the third is the unorthodox zoner. So the first archetype we're going to talk about are the all-arounders. And I'm going to be honest, that's just a fancy way of saying Shoto. So that's why you're going to see characters like Ryu, Ken, Luke, Akuma, and Terry in this category. Is Terry a Shoto? I don't know. We'll talk about it in another video. But the point is, all-arounders do have fireballs, and their fireballs can be pretty strong. But the one thing that separates them from pure zoners is overall, their fireballs aren't as strong when it comes to things like recovery and utility. But the key thing to remember about an all-arounder that uses fireballs is each one of them individually will have something that separates them from another character, something that makes them tick. And this is an example of that. Alright, first let's look at Ryu. The one thing that sets him apart from the other all-arounders is his Denjin charge. So as you know, this is an upgrade to Ryu's moveset. It makes his fireball much faster, and this will actually blow through other fireballs as well. And the important thing is you can also do the light punch version and the medium punch version, and you can still hold on to the charge. This will only come out with the fierce version. And the reason that it's important is it gives Ryu an edge in the zoning battle against some of the pure zoners, which I'll get into in a bit. But the trade-off is you have to, waste some time to get the charge off. So oftentimes people might want to rush you down in this game, to start pressure like that. But if Ryu chooses to, let's just say, get the charge, that option is taken away from me right now. So that's the trade-off for getting this. But then you have to factor this in that maybe it's more important to have a competitive fireball against some characters than trying to go rush them down. Then you have Luke. The thing that separates him is that his fireballs are extremely fast, and his OD fireball is one of the fastest fireballs in the game, if not the fastest. So he always has that, ace in his sleeve that if he's being pressured or someone's walking him down, his fireball is very quick to stop people from pursuing. And they also don't travel like normal projectiles. They're more like a hit scan where they just appear in the spot that they're supposed to be. So that's what separates Luke from the other all-arounders. What separates Ken from a lot of all-arounders is that his OD fireball can be comboed into with a drive rush. And the times you'll see this mostly is when the fireball is going to hit. Let's just say the opponent throws out a fireball of their own and you do an OD fireball. Yours is going to beat it in the recovery, and then you can follow it with the fierce punch and then go into the combo of your choice. But a lot of Kens do utilize this, and this is what helps him keep up in the fireball war and make other all-arounders or pure zoners respect his fireballs. In Street Fighter 4, Ken actually had a Kara fireball, but let's just say thank God they didn't give this boy that in this game. The two things that separate Akuma from the other all-arounders is he has a red fireball which he can charge that can give him an advantage in a fireball game or just be annoying on an opponent's wake up. And he also has an air fireball, which actually helps him, pressure the opponent from the skies. In old games, he'd actually jump back and throw fireballs, which was, let's just say, very obnoxious. But in this game, he has to always move forward when he throws air fireballs, but it's still good. And then he has an EX version in the air. Terry's thing that separates him is that his power wave goes under other fireballs. So you have to keep in mind that you're going to be trading a lot if people are throwing fireballs. But if you catch them at the right spacing, you're going to hit them and be able to block or parry in time. So that's a very first tip for the all-arounders. You have to find out the one move that separates you from, other all-arounders and implement that into your gameplay properly, because that's one of the ways you can get a big advantage in your zoning game. And then the second very important part is just knowing where your sweet spot is as an all-arounder. Every zoning character has a sweet spot, so it doesn't matter, which archetype. But if you stand back here as an all-arounder and throw fireballs, there's nothing wrong with the strategy. Do it if it works for your game plan, but you're not going to get that much mileage out of it as an all-arounder. Your opponent can perfect parry, jump over fireballs, and you can't really, pressure them anymore because this is not the sweet spot for them. The all-around sweet spot is actually in the mid-range over here and up close. And the reason it's over here is that this is where all of your normals can be complemented with your fireballs. So from this range, you can throw out annoying fireballs fast, slow. If your opponent jumps, you still have access to normals that can hit them. And up close, you can still get them with tools like, crouch medium kicks into fireballs, which is just an annoying pressure tool. You can walk back just out of range of your opponent's normals and still pressure them with a fireball. Think about the fireball as an all-arounder, as an extension of your normals, especially at this range. So in the mid-range and close range, it's much better than being far away. So up next is traditional or pure zoners. And these are the zoners that, used to cause rage back in the day. So they're characters like Guile, Sagat, Dhalsim. I used to include DeeJay in this category, but honestly, after Street Fighter 6, he might be more in the Unorthodox category, which I'm going to get into in a bit. But the main traits that make pure zoners is that they have elite, top-of-the-line fireballs that are usually superior to other characters because they either have very quick recovery or they have amazing utility. And the other thing that makes a pure zoner is that their normals actually play a massive role in their zoning game. So Guile is a character in the history of Street Fighter, has had amazing projectiles. His iconic sonic boom, comes out very fast, it recovers very fast, and it was just a nightmare to deal with, especially in the older games. But what I mean about having normals that help your fireballs, Guile has normals like this bazooka knee, which sends him forward but still lets him hide his charge so he can throw a fireball. Then he has this, Sobat spin kick, which can still send him backwards and he can hold on a charge and let in a fireball. So the important thing to know with these types of pure zoners like Guile is you have to use these normals for your own spacing because it's going to help you close the gap while still keep your fireball pressure going. Then you have Dhalsim, another character, incredible fireball game. They recover fast, they go slow, they go fast. He's got everything you want. But then the thing that makes him a pure zoner is that all of his normals complement his fireball game. They're just extensions of his fireballs, and he's going to struggle when people get in close, but this is what makes Dhalsim a pure zoner. Then you have characters like Sagat, who's not in the game yet, but please Capcom, just put him in. For me, don't you love me? He'll be in the game, I hope, soon. His normals are all about pure anti-airs. They cover the perfect range, so if his fireballs or his uppercuts won't get you, one of his normals can. And that's going to be a trait that's going to follow Sagat into every single game that he's in. And it's one of those things that, you have to bake it into your gameplay because his normals are all about protecting the skies, as Zangief would say. So just to close on, pure traditional zoners, they are my favorite archetype, but they do take the longest to learn out of any other, zoning archetype, just because their fireballs are so intricate and their normals have to be baked into, every single part of their fireball game. And it will take years to learn, but I promise the journey's worth it. And the other reason it's very hard to learn them, especially in older Street Fighter games, pure zoners had very hard matchups in some situations. Characters like Cammy, Yun, they would just blow up a ton of, zoning characters because they had many options to get around fireballs. Now don't get me wrong, they also had their advantages, like when they faced off against grappling characters, but it's a give and take. So you have to work on those bad matchups, and that's probably not going to change, in Street Fighter 6 either. And then the final archetype is what I like to call the unorthodox zoners. So these are characters like Ed, JP, Street Fighter 6, DeeJay. And the reason I call them unorthodox zoners is because they're capable of playing the lame game, from full screen, just as good, if not better, than the all-arounders. But the key difference is they're all capable of flipping the zoning game on its head and, you know, going on the offensive and changing everything up. And they have to implement that to be successful. So what I mean by that is that characters like Ed, they're, you know, fully capable of playing like a lame zoning game. They have very solid fireballs. His normals are, you know, arguably the best normals in the game. They have long reach, you know, they can really keep opponents out. But the important thing to remember here is, you know, this can get stagnant. And when that happens, the unorthodox characters that zone, like Ed, are capable of, you know, flipping the script and then going in for things like dashes. And when they're in your face, they have a lot of mechanics that can help them to be annoying and whatnot, which a traditional zoner might not have. And you have to implement, you know, this game plan of, you know, flipping zoning on its head to keep your opponents guessing and to respect your zoning game overall. For DeeJay, the way that he flips the zoning game on its head is that he has access to, you know, one of the best drive rushes in the history of mankind, but he also has access to sway. And sway is a very unique mechanic for, you know, someone like a zoning character to have, because it takes them in and out of traffic, but it also puts them in, you know, awkward ranges for opponents, and they're going to whiff normals, and you can get devastating combos off of it. So that's what really separates DeeJay, and that's how he flips the zoning game on its head. Then you have JP, who's a trap character, and what that means is a lot of his projectiles, they're always going to be in the same spot. So even when I'm close to Zangief, if I do the back, you know, the fierce punch spike, it's always going to go behind him. So you have to know the exact spot that they're standing for moves to hit, and that's why they're trapped. So trap characters generally have like a square that they want to keep the opponent in, and within that square, you know, that's where they can do all their shenanigans with like these portals and everything like this. The way that JP, you know, turns the meta on its head in terms of zoning is that he can put up portals and they can make you think that he's either going to attack you with them, and if he catches you doing like a parry or something, like he'll teleport through. So that's how he flips everything on its head. So long story short, unorthodox owners need to know, you know, when to ditch the fireball game completely and then work on some of the tricky shenanigans that they have. Alright, if you had to skip ahead to the tips portion of this video, I don't blame you. Life's pretty short, use the time however you want. So most characters have 3 fireballs. They'll have a light version, a medium version, and a fierce version. And no joke, 90% of the time you're going to just be going between the light version and the fierce version, and then the medium one to change up the timing. But the reason you're going to be using lights and mediums mostly is you want a fireball that's very slow, and you want a fireball that's very fast. And I'm going to show you why in a couple of minutes. So the first thing to know is that each fireball comes up in a different starting frame. So you see, the light one comes out in 16 frames, the medium in 14 frames, and then the fast one in 12 frames. And you're going to ask why that's important. Well, the 12 frame, the fierce punch version, is the fastest one. So a lot of times you're going to want to use it in situations where the character is walking you down and you want a quick option, you know, to throw a fireball in their face to stop their advancements. If, let's just say I did the light version, up close, Jury will have more time to react to this because it comes 4 frames shorter. That's not to say it's still not useful in certain ranges, because if I do it full screen, I'll recover before that fireball hits Jury. So you have to know when to use the lights and fierces, but just remember this tip. If they're walking towards you and they're close, the fierce version is likely going to be better, and if they're further away and you want to recover before the fireball gets to them, the light version might be better like that. But remember, don't use that as a universal, you know, that's how it's always going to be. Sometimes it makes more sense to, you know, throw the heavy version from far away as well. But again, this is going to come with practice. So I am going to talk about things like fireball traps later in the video, but right now I just want to focus on, you know, knowing what fireball to use. And one example I'm going to talk about is in the corner. If you're point blank, most characters are going to be very negative with their fireballs. As you can see, you know, the fierce punch version is -9, the light punch version is -5, so you're going to eat some nice punishes if you're up close. If you do the OD version, chances are you're going to be safe, and I know characters like Akuma are very safe when they do it. But this is just to show you how much spacing matters for your, you know, corner control with fireballs. If I take a few steps back and then do the fierce punch version of a fireball, it's -7. Which is still very negative, but because I'm further away, not every character is going to be able to get a consistent punish off. But the real magic is in the light punch version. You see, it becomes -2, which is not punishable at all in this game. But if I take 1 or 2 more steps back, now the fierce punch version is -2, which is very good. But the light punch version is super plus. It's +6. If I take another step back, it's even more plus. So you have to know, if you take a couple steps back, you're going to be at more of an advantage. And the reason this is important is, once the fireball hits them, let's just say the light version, because it's +9, I'll be recovered in time to throw out a DP if they need, a crouch, fierce to do a quick anti-air, a standing hard kick to do another anti-air. But the important thing to know is it's my turn again, because it's +10. So if I want to add more pressure and then throw a fierce version out, this character cannot jump out of this, because if they jump out of this, they're likely going to get clipped, or I'll recover in time to do a DP. So remember, when you're spacing your fireballs, the further back you go, the more plus you're going to be on the fireballs. But mix up the fast and the slows, and once in a while, go in and just go for a grab or something like that. And then again, this is where the jab fireballs shine, because earlier in the video I told you the fast fireballs are good for making your opponent stop, pursuing you up close. But the slow lingering fireballs are good for locking them down in the corner, because even from this distance, I'm in +15 range of safety, so I can chuck out another fireball right away. So you have to know, in the corner, lights will be very good for you at certain distances. So the second tip, and one of the most important tips for zoning characters, you have to know feints. And what feints are basically ways to fake out your opponent to make them think you're going to throw a fireball. So when they jump, you can hit them with a DP. And I'm going to tell you 3 very specific ways to do feints. And by far, the best way to do feints is by crouching. So a lot of times you're going to see characters, crouch back and forward. They're not trying to teabag you, I promise. Or maybe they are, I don't know. The reason is, when you crouch, it looks like you're going to do an animation. So Ryu's fireball, you can see he takes a step back, he gets a bit low, then he launches a fireball. That's what this feint is trying to, make it seem like you're doing. And some characters like Sagat that have like low tiger shots, that's why you'll see a lot of Sagat players, do feints like this. The other reason these feints are good is because you can move forward and do them. You can move backwards and do them. So you're able to adjust your spacing in your zoning game, so you can get up, you can creep up close, you can sneak away, and still make it look like you're throwing a fireball. And then the third minor reason, you can buffer while you're feinting as well. So, if your opponent throws something out, you can mash super, you can mash DP because you're buffering. So that's just a minor advantage that you have from crouch feints. But remember, there's no argument. Crouch feints are by far the best in the game because they're the safest and they help you with the best positioning control. So the second best way to do feints, and it's still a very good way to do it, is to fake normals. This used to be much better in older games because, in Street Fighter 6, there's a lot more extended hurt boxes on moves, and you can still get clipped from your lights, from crazy distances or crazy strong normals. So you just have to be a bit more aware. But the key here is always fake the light buttons. So you might have seen this a million times playing people. They're so far away, but they're jabbing or they're crouch jabbing or crouch light kicking. And you're thinking, this is never going to hit me. And they know it's not going to hit me. The reason they're doing this is they want you to think they're committing to a move like a fireball, like that, by changing their animation or their position. And this is very important because lights recover extremely quick. So if you're able to, throw a jab and your opponent jumps, you're going to get that DP out 10 times out of 10. But remember, it needs to be lights. Moves that come out fast and moves that recover fast. Using fierce punches or, roundhouse kicks, that doesn't make any sense because the startup is so long and they're active for so long that if your opponent does jump, you're going to eat a full combo. And they're so telegraphed that they don't even look like fireballs. But you see how a fireball just comes out right away? That looks very similar to a light. So remember, when it comes to feints, focus on the lights and find the best one that works for you. Also, if you're using characters like Shotos that have, shortcut DPs like that, you can mash out things like, crouch light and then still do the shortcut motion. So work on the lights and avoid the heavies. And then the third way, this is the riskiest way, but it still has its uses and you have to know when to implement it. It's faking special moves to look like fireballs. Now, obviously with Ryu, you're not going to do a Tatsu to be like, hey, look, I'm throwing a fireball. He has this move. And when you do this, it looks like you're throwing a fireball, and I'm sure many of us have been caught by it already. And when they jump, you have a DP. So if you have specials that, you know, work as a fireball or look like a fireball, that's a great tool to have. And even in situations like this, a lot of times people want to parry. You can do this, quickly dash in and then go for a combo or grab them if they're parrying. So it gives you multiple options. And just to give you an example with other characters, Ed can do like a fake spark like this, not commit to, you know, the fireball, and then still get the DP off. So he has a special move that still works as a fake feint. Guile's another character. You can do Sonic Blade. Just keep it on stage just to get more information. If they jump, you can get them with a stand medium kick, crouch fierce. You can even hold your charge and then get it off. So just to close on, you know, the feints, I want to see a lot of these, you know, crouching. You're not teabagging. If someone sends you, you know, hate mail after, say, bro, I'm just improving my zoning. Fake the normals, make sure they're the quick normals. And if you do have, you know, fake out specials, use them to your advantage. Number 3, you know, is exclusive to games that are like Street Fighter 6, is chasing down your fireball. So you can throw a fireball full screen and then drive rush after it and then chase it down. And I'm going to show you why this is such an important tool that you have to utilize. The first reason is spacing is the most important thing with a fireball character, and this actually lets you go forward while you basically have a shield activated. If the opponent attacks you, they're going to get hit by that unless they jump, right? So you're able to actually cover all this ground by drive rushing behind. And because drive rush gives you so much control, you can actually stop it wherever you want. You can, you know, quickly do a jab or a grab to stop it faster. You can even do moves that extend you further. So you have tons of options that you can do out of the drive rush. But the very first important thing to remember is it gives you a safe way to advance. The other thing it helps you do is cover your angles for things like jump-ins. Let's just say I have Bison, you know, jumping around. If he used to jump over this fireball, I can't DP him from this far away. But if he used to jump away, and then I go in, and, you know, if I had a faster DP, not like Ed's lame 10 frame DP, like that, I'm able to cover that ground and still get the anti-air off. And we used to have these as like car uppercuts back in the day, but it's a great tool for you to know that even at full screen, by drive rushing behind a fireball, you can still dash forward and then get off a clutch DP. Another reason, more obvious one, is you actually can combo after it. So if you do clip someone with a counter hit, you know, it's a great way for a zoning character to get damage. This really wasn't possible until, you know, games like Street Fighter 6. So as characters that zone, you got to take advantage of that. Then the other thing is, when your opponent's burnt out, this could be great for a checkmate situation where you're able to, you know, pursue your opponent down if they don't want to take the chip damage. So you have to know they're going to do something when you chase down this fireball. When they're burnt out, you have to know, am I going to get the DP off? And I'm going to carry the pressure with like a checkmate, you know, drive impact into the corner? Or can I go into, you know, further chip damage combos like this to really chip away? So when they're burnt out, Fireball Drive Rush is great because I promise it's going to force your opponent to do something. You just have to be ready for it. So in conclusion, you know, enjoy Drive Rush Fireball because there's no guarantee it's going to be in a Street Fighter game after this. So zoning characters, we're eating nice with it. So the next tip actually has nothing to do with fireballs, believe it or not. It's all about your anti-airs. You know, your crouch fierces, your DPs, and you have to, as a zoning character, know how to anti-air because no one is going to respect your fireball game, you know, if they can just jump over and know that, you know, you're not able to answer this jump in. You're either going to get hit, you're going to have to block it, you have to try to go for a parry. But if you have things like, you know, your crouch fierce, your DPs ready, your opponent will more likely have to stay on the ground now because they're going to say, oh crap, this guy's stopping every, you know, jump in I have. And then they have to play your fireball gauntlet. Now, I know DPs are hard to do for a lot of people. So take your time, no rush. You know, try to get better at your own pace. But in the meantime, find a normal that works good for you. So a lot of characters will have like a crouch fierce anti-air. And these are still extremely good and viable. Like, I can still stuff a lot of things. And if you want another easy solution, you can do like a quick jumping jab or a quick jumping medium punch, something that comes out quick. And that'll give you another anti-air option. So at least your opponent knows, hey, this guy's not free to jump ins, and now they're playing the Fireball Gauntlet as I mentioned earlier. So this is pretty hard to show on camera. I'm going to try my best. There's an old saying that, you know, if you can block it, you can do a DP. So over here, I'm able to block Terry's, you know, jumping advances. So if I'm to throw a fireball and I blocked it like that, that means I could actually do a dragon punch instead of blocking it. And I know I'm still guilty of this, and I've been playing zoning characters for years, but I'll try to perfect parry it like that, or I'll try to block it. But in reality, I can do DP. And the one thing I'll tell you to just improve is if you throw a fireball and they jump, just mash DP. Because honestly, if you get hit like that, you're going to get hit regardless. It's not because of the DP. But if they're to jump, you know, you can just mash out the DP even in the recovery of your fireball, and something is going to come out. Don't do a super because you might, you know, have a big punishing combo. But it's better to mash out a DP than to block in those situations. So just to conclude on this, practice your anti-airs in training mode. Go to Battle Hub and just play unranked games, honestly, and just try to get, you know, a fireball game going and then just trying to DP. Doesn't matter if you lose, you're just trying to get better, right? That's the main goal. And now that we have things like replay takeover, you can go watch anybody's replay and see if they missed a jump in, and then you'll practice the DP when you take over. So there are plenty of tools that can help you improve, and I know you will. So the other thing to know as a zoning character is sometimes you're going to run into another character that loves throwing fireballs as well. So in this situation, there's many things you can do. You can throw your own fireballs to create a clash, like you see over here. You can do a parry. It's best to get a perfect parry if you can, because it puts you in an advantageous spot. And if you're up close and you get a perfect parry, you can actually do a drive rush into another combo. So that's good to know. And the other thing to neutralize it, see what I did there, is to do a neutral jump. And the reason the neutral jump is important is not many characters are going to be able to punish this. But if the fireball is still on the screen, as you can see over there, Akuma cannot throw another fireball. So they have to watch their own timing as well. Then the other thing in Fireball Wars, you have to play to your character's strength. As I mentioned earlier, you know, Ryu has a Denjin Fireball. So I know I can do these, you know, basic trade clash combos with Akuma. But when I want to change, you know, the fortune in my favor, I'm going to let the Denjin Fireball go and get my charge back, you know, when Akuma's on his floor. Because I know he wants to have a zoning battle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to always have my Denjin charge ready to know that when I need to, I can let that bad boy fly, and Akuma has to respect it. And what I mean by playing to your character's advantage, again, just an example with Terry, I already mentioned how his fireball goes under other characters' fireballs. So in this situation, Ken is low on health. I'm going to get hit by a million fireballs. I don't care, because I know I have the health lead and my fireball is going to go under his, and eventually he's the one that's going to lose because he didn't have much health left. And then the last thing in the Fireball Wars, I see this all the time. People do OD fireballs from full screen, and I get what they're doing. Sometimes they want to reset the situation, but this isn't the best tool, because if your opponent's smart, they're just going to block it like that, and we're going to be in the same position, and I'm down 2 bars. So the right time to use OD fireballs is when you're in a situation where you know it's going to go through a fireball and you're going to create pressure, or you're close enough that you can follow up and do something after as well. OD fireballs are a great situation, you know, to reset, especially if your fireballs are not as strong. But you don't want to throw it out willy-nilly because, you know, drive bar is so important in this game. And then the last tip, you just have to be patient in a fireball war. You're in the zoning battle. It's going to be a long battle. You don't want to commit to a jump in because your opponent's going to be ready for it. And if you have to reset the situation, like someone like, you know, Ed can spark a fireball and not shoot one back. And this is able to let you get some information. You can slow it down. You always don't have to, you know, push the fireball forward. So sometimes it's best to just slow it down, absorb the fireball, but don't commit to a jump in like that all the time, because that's what your opponent is waiting for. So tip number 6 is a very important tip. You always, as a zoner, have to know the opponent's resources, because their drive bar or their super bars might give them option to moves that just blow up fireballs. Take Cammy for example. Now that I know she has level 3, I have to keep in mind that she has a super that can just annihilate fireballs. So even if I send her full screen and I throw a fireball, if I hold back its punish counter, it still got me. So you gotta know, once Cammy's got level 3, you have to be very careful with the fireballs that you throw. And it's not only exclusive to level 3s, like some characters level 2, like Hondo over here, he'll still be able to blow up fireballs, you know, from very far and very quickly. So you have to be mindful. If Honda has level 2, he can do it. If he has EX Headbutt, he can do it as well. And that's why when you know your opponent has, you know, supers that can blow up fireballs, you just have to find the right range to still pressure them with a meaty fireball like that. So I know I'll be able to block in time. Would this work on Cammy? Absolutely not. But you have to know the right character and the right tool for the job. So you're just gonna have to take some time and just understand, you know, what the ranges on these supers are. Even someone like Ed, who you wouldn't believe, you know, has a far-reaching super, like this is still gonna make me have to block from this far. So even from this distance, if I throw a fireball, I'm getting clipped. And some characters, you know, have very far ranges like Cammy, but some people have deceptively far ranges like Ed in this situation. So again, it's gonna come with practice, but know if I do want to pressure Ed with this, maybe I gotta step at this distance and then throw out a fireball. As you see, it didn't get me. Especially if I'm playing in long sets, you're gonna realize how much information you get from just fireballs. No one wants to, you know, get hit by a fireball. They don't want to block. There's 90% of the time you're gonna see a reaction if they don't get hit. If you notice your opponent, you know, is blocking a lot, then just keep chucking out fireballs. If you notice that your opponent, you know, tries to parry a lot, maybe you throw a fake feint, you do a fake, you know, special like that, and then you go in for a drive grab. If you know, let's just say that my opponent is pretty jumpy, when they block 1 or 2 fireballs, the first thing they do is jump. You can do like a fake feint like this. You can just wait for it and still get off the DP, but you know they're jumpy. Some people, they like to do things like neutral jump in the corner, or just neutral jump because they don't want to get hit by another fireball. And eventually you're going to start picking up on this, so you're going to know that, hey, I can dash forward and then do a DP, because this person, you know, they like to stay in the air because they don't like to be committed to fireballs. This is going to take a long time. You're oftentimes not going to learn this a lot, you know, in the very first match you have with somebody, but the longer you play, you have to take fireballs into account as an information tool. And one tip that I recommend that will help people is do the 2 to 3 fireball method. Throw 1 or 2 fireballs, or 3 fireballs, sorry, in a row, and then just wait and see what the reaction is. Not everyone is going to jump right away, but you're able to get some information. And if you hit, or sorry, if you get hit by a jump in one of those, you know, 3 testing fireballs, don't let it deter you. You're a zoning character. You're going to get jumped in sometimes and just eat big damage. But at least you'll know right off the bat, hey, this person is hoppy right away, so maybe I should just throw 1 fireball, wait, and then hit them with a DP. Alright, this is also a bit harder to show on video, but I'm going to try my best. So the next tip is fireball traps, which is just my favorite thing as a zoning character. It's probably going to be yours as well. But you've been in a situation where, you know if you're standing further away, as I told you earlier in the video, you're going to be very plus on fireballs. So you have to use this as a trap situation. So one thing you need to remember is you can do 3 light fireballs in a row from this distance. If they jump, you can still get the DP off, even though your fireball is still on the screen, because you're so plus. This will also work for medium punches, but you gotta do it 1 step further back. So 3 medium punch fireballs in a row, and you can still get the DP off. So that's not to say that the Fierce Punch version of fireballs aren't useful in traps. They are actually very useful. The thing is, you just can't do multiple of them in a row and then get off a DP, because at most distances, you're gonna get hit by that. Where you wanna use them is to stop the opponent from jumping, just like that. So on the 3rd hit, because you're so plus, this is actually gonna clip them out of the sky. And this is important because it lets you change up your timing on everything and then go back into, you know, the basic trap as well, so you have that in hand. I know I overly simplified it, and I get it. It's very complicated fireball traps, and it's gonna just take time and you practicing and learning, you know, how you use fireballs, how your opponent reacts. But just remember one thing: as long as they block a light version and a medium version from far away, you're so plus that you can throw out another one, and if they jump, you'll recover in time to do a DP. So even if you start off with a heavy version, as long as the second is a medium or light, they'll be in the trap. So over here, I'll do a heavy, medium, light, and I'll still get the DP off. And it'll work the same if you do a heavy and then 2 lights. If they block that first light and then they jump, as you can see, I was so plus, I can get another DP off. So remember, the traps work best when they block a medium and a light. And then when you get more comfortable with fireball traps, you're going to find yourself in these situations, and I promise you're going to start hitting these so consistently just because you know how fast your fireballs recover, how far they travel, and what options are available to you as well. Buster Wolf! Another very important tip, it's all about the rhythm. When you play a fireball character, rhythm is very important. And what I mean by that is, when you're just standing in one place, you know, throwing the same fireball over and over, there's no rhythm to that. You know, you're very stationary, your opponent's going to be okay with that, you're going to make them comfortable, and that's not something you want in a game like Street Fighter 6, where there are tons of offensive options. You always want to seem like you're up to something. So maybe you'll throw a fireball, you'll do a feint, and then you'll throw a fireball again. Or maybe you'll throw a fireball, dash forward, and then do a fireball. Maybe this time I'm going to dash back and throw a fireball. The point is, as long as you're moving and you're disrupting, you know, the rhythm, it's very, very hard for your opponent to know exactly what you're going to do, as opposed to you just throwing a fireball in the same spot, never moving, and you're stationary. So remember, the entire battlefield is your playground. So move around, forward, back, down. Just make them not comfortable. And then the final tip, you have to be ready for when an opponent lands on your fireball, because in this game, if you drive rush after, you can get tons of conversions like what you see on the screen right now. And believe me, I promise you're just going to get so much better at this that you're going to know when the opponent's going to land on a fireball. Like by this point, you've probably thrown out 10,000 fireballs, so you just know the timing, the opponent's jump timing. Believe me, you're going to know. So it's going to start off like, oh, they jumped and now they're landing on fireballs, I know. And eventually, you're going to get more comfortable and say, hey, maybe I can throw out an OD fireball after to keep it going. And then you're going to say, maybe I can get more. So after a juggle, you might just mash level 1. And then that level 1 is going to work as well. And then eventually, you're going to get better and better and say, hey, maybe there's a, you know, extended drive rush combo that I can do that will go into like the Hashogeki into a level 3. And guess what? It works. Because in this game, because you can drive rush, you have tons of combo potential off of people landing on fireballs or getting hit by your fireballs. So look out for that. It's not going to come overnight, but I promise you're going to learn how to do it just because you put in the time. And then one bonus tip, this is mostly for people that play offline or, you know, go to locals or tournaments. When I used to play, you know, Sagat back in the day, I used to turn off one of the buttons on my controller or my arcade sticks. So if your arcade stick has extra buttons, I unmapped it. So whenever I push it, nothing would happen. And I would actually use feints or pretend like I was doing a fireball or a super with that button. And my opponent would react to that button as an audio cue and then do something. They'll try to do like a counter attack or jump. But in reality, nothing was happening because that button didn't do anything. And it was actually able to, you know, help me win tons of games when people weren't used to it. So if you do have extra buttons that you're not using and you're playing offline, you might want to unmap them because it's a real life feint. And honestly, it's so funny when it works because even your opponent just laughs like, yeah, you got me. And believe me, you're going to get a lot of people. That's the end of the video. I hope you found it useful. And I just want to thank you for sticking around and watching to this point. Everyone has been so friendly and kind in the comment section, and I know I probably just jinxed that now, so everyone's going to rip on me. But seriously, people have given me so many kind words. They've offered a lot of, you know, creative suggestions of how I can improve, and I do feel that it's already made me a much better content creator because of that. So a big thank you to you. If there's any topic you want me to cover in the future, let me know, and I'll try to make a video on it. Until then, keep on zoning and annoying your opponents. Peace out.